So hey guys, like Sophie said, my name is Katie, and this is my coworker Sam. We are from When I Work, and we're super pumped to be talking to you today about how integrating with Programmable Chat has helped us make work less work for the hourly workforce. Before we dive in and talk about the intricacies of why we decided to implement with Programmable Chat and how we did that, I'm just going to be walking through who When I Work is, why the business problem we're solving is super important for our customers, and then giving a little bit of an overview about the product that we built with Programmable Chat, which is WorkChat.
Is that working?
Yeah. So When I Work is a scheduling, attendance, and communication platform for the hourly workforce. We help employees submit their availability, whether it's for short term within the next few days, the long term within the next few months, and also submit their PTO requests through our app. That information is then sent to the managers, and they can build the schedule for the same time frame, the week, the next 2 weeks, the next few months. All of that is done directly through the app and then published out to the employees and the supervisors. And any adjustments that need to be made can be shared directly through the app again and republished. The attendance portion of the app helps employees clock in and out for their shifts, either through their mobile device, a tablet on site, or a computer that's on site at the workplace. That information is fed into our timesheets feature so that the managers and business owners can manage payroll directly within the app or through our integrations. And then there is the communication platform, which you guys are here to learn about today, and we'll be diving into in a second. But I wanted to illustrate a little bit more about the business problem that we're solving by taking a trip down memory lane and talking about my experience with my first hourly job. So before I was a product manager, I was a lifeguard in college, and the way that I would submit my availability to my manager was through a Post-it note. And I would leave that in the aquatics office and hope that she received the availability. And then she would collect everybody else's availability as well and publish the schedule using a Word doc, just a table in a Word doc. That would either go out through email or it would be posted in the Aquatic Center office. And I had no idea which one it would be for that week. So that was super inefficient and super unreliable. Inefficient in the sense that there was massive communication breakdowns, and half the time I was getting scheduled when I was either in class or out of town at a swim meet and couldn't work. Unreliable because I may not be showing up for work that day. And also unreliable in the sense that, again, I wouldn't know what way I was getting the schedule communicated to me, and that was super risky. So When I Work is diminishing all of those communication breakdowns and all of the inefficiencies and unreliability that can occur when you're trying to do your scheduling over Post-it notes or Microsoft Word or Excel or some other offline format. So what does this actually mean for our users? We have 500,000 monthly active users. That equates to 5.5 million shifts being published on our platform every month, and 9.1 shifts being hours being clocked. So this is across a variety of different industries. It includes restaurants, bars, we have dog walking and pet sitting services, we have Ben & Jerry's like you're seeing, different hotels, lots of different industries covered and different size businesses, anywhere from 5 employees, mom and pop shops, to 250 into the thousands. So what about WorkChat? WorkChat is the way the hourly workforce communicates, collaborates, and engages with one another. Since we launched in early December, we have heard from a lot of customers about how it is creating a better working environment for their employees. It's really adding to the culture and getting everybody on the same page. And what we've noticed is that we're solving 3 primary business problems when it comes to communication. So we're helping these small businesses work better together. One of the biggest problems in communication for the hourly workforce is the fact that these businesses aren't providing a cell phone or a private line for their employees or private email. And a majority of the hourly workforce is millennials. They don't want to be providing their personal email address or their personal phone number to all of their coworkers. So they really have no secure or private way to be talking with one another. Now with WorkChat, they do have that. We're also contributing to employee satisfaction. Seeing as a majority of the hourly workforce is millennials, we've learned through research that a lot of them are disengaged at work when they consider their employer to not be a pioneer in mobile technology. So they're less loyal to that company, there's high turnover, they're not as engaged. And WorkChat is really bridging that gap and allowing the employees to be happier at work. And then finally, we are adding value off the job. So because these employees now have a way to communicate with one another off the job, they can swap shifts more easily. If they have to completely not show up to work due to an emergency, they can quickly connect with their peers and have them cover their shifts. They're also communicating with their managers more about PTO and asking about that in advance. And all of that is still getting integrated into the platform, so they actually go through the process of requesting that and approving it in our app. We know that WorkChat is working from the data that we have. We are seeing a lot more, and Sam's going to cover this in a couple of slides, the 3 different types of conversations that we support in our app. But since launching the ability to talk one-on-one with peers in the workplace or in a small group setting, such as some people who share the same position or work at a specific location of a franchise, those conversations are getting created more and more. And people are talking with one another and doing the exact things that we were trying to solve for. So Sam's going to take over for a little bit and talk about why we chose to integrate with Programmable Chat and then how we actually build WorkChat.
Cool. Thanks, Katie. Thanks for the WorkChat overview. So my name's Sam. I'm the tech lead on the WorkChat team. And early on in this process, when we had figured out we want to integrate messaging into our application, but how to go about doing that. And the first thing that my conversation I had with our chief architect is we really didn't want to build this ourselves. We're not a chat company. Communication is really important to us, but we didn't really have the time or resources to invest in building our own chat app. So what we did was we built out a spreadsheet of all the different providers kind of on the market, and then the business needs we had and kind of the solutions we were looking for, and really just looked at all those different providers and figured out who was ticking the most boxes and kind of narrow it down to that. So let's move on here. So kind of going to talk about some business needs and then the solutions of how we went about taking care of that. So first is speed to market. Talked a little bit about this, but we really wanted to get a product out there quickly into the hands of our customers, an MVP that we can get feedback on and iterate on and figure out how exactly our customers are going to use this and how it's going to most benefit that engagement with the app. And then what Twilio provided for us to help us achieve that quick speed to market was SDKs, really pretty ready to integrate into our existing app out of the box for all 3 of the platforms that we needed, JavaScript, iOS, and our Android app. Made it super easy to get things going really quickly. Next is secure communication. Our customers want to know that the messages they're sending on our system are secure, that they're being sent to the right people, and they're not being read by folks that aren't supposed to see them. And that's really helped out by Programmable Chat's REST API and their access token architecture. And it's great because that allows us to control all of that authentication with the user, so we can verify the user's identity and then know that that person is seeing the right chats for them. And we'll dig in a little bit more into access tokens in a little bit. But then real-time platform syncing. Obviously, you can't have a successful chat app if it's not happening in real time, right? And also, with so many of our users being mobile-focused, whether it's in an app, and then sometimes, at home, maybe on their laptop or desktop, but being able to have all of that information sync across platforms is really key. And with Programmable Chat, all of those events that are firing to build that app are happening over WebSockets, so that essentially each of those mobile SDKs is subscribing to those channels, and they're immediately getting updates as new messages are sent, new members are added to that channel or removed from the channel, and the app can immediately react to that and re-render itself. Next is scalability. This is really important for us. We wanted a provider that was going to scale with us and to be able to, at first when we were testing this feature out right after release, we were using smaller customers, but we wanted to reach out to bigger and bigger customers. And so we found with Twilio, you can have up to 1,000 members in a single channel, which was really great for us to be able to roll that out to really, really large customers. And then lastly is just continuous market enhancements. So over the last 6 or 7 months that we've been using Programmable Chat in closed beta and then beta, and now just released GA, we've had several different iterations of SDKs making stability improvements and adding new features that have really helped us out. And then to go along with that, just great documentation to cover these new features. And what I really appreciate that I feel like a lot of APIs don't necessarily have is some really good code examples. And not only code examples, but code examples in several different languages depending on what you're looking for. So now let's talk about how we actually built WorkChat. So I'm going to talk about two main pieces of the puzzle. One is how we kind of organized everything in Twilio, and then how we built our WorkChat API, which is essentially our API that kind of facilitates the communication between Twilio's backend and our mobile clients. So first, how it's all organized in Twilio. We've split out into 3 different sub-accounts, one just for each of our different development, staging, and production environments. And then within each of those sub-accounts, we've split each of our workplaces. And when I say workplace, I mean like one of our customers. So it might be a coffee shop. Maybe it's a coffee shop that has a couple locations, that each one of those is managed at a different location, but they can all talk to each other within that particular workplace. So each one of those workplaces we split out into their own service in Twilio, and that's just a essentially how you can manage that. And the reason we do that is so that we can leverage public and private channels within chat. So that you can have public channels in one workplace that don't bleed into another workplace. Because otherwise users would be seeing one global list of public chats, which is not what we want. We want each customer of ours to have their own sandbox to work in. And then within each of those services, we then have 3 different types of channels. So the first is what we call our workplace channel. And essentially, it's kind of like an announcements channel. We have it there for our kind of managers and supervisors to be able to quickly send out announcements to employees. And also, potentially in the future, for even us at the staff at When I Work, to be able to communicate new features or any sort of, anything that we might, as a business, want to communicate to them. And that channel is actually created by the WorkChat API when that workplace first signs up for When I Work. We, on the back end, will create that. And then the other 2 types of channels are group channels and one-on-one channels. And Katie talked a little bit about that, but essentially group chats are, a chat based on some sort of position or location, or even they could make a chat to talk about an upcoming event that they have. They're all user created right now, so it's up to the user to be able to, they can play with that however they want. And then one-on-one chats, which obviously is just for direct message, one-on-one conversations. And the way we actually differentiate those in the app is in chat, each of those channel objects has an attributes field it's just some JSON that you can store whatever you want there. So we actually use that to store metadata about the channel. So we just have 3 different metadata types and that's important so that the mobile apps can the mobile apps can render those different types of channels accordingly. Like, we don't show avatars for a one-on-one chat because you already know who you're talking to, and things like that. So now let's actually talk about how we build our WorkChat API. So WorkChat API is a microservice that we built separate from our main application to essentially just facilitate that communication between our Twilio's backend and our mobile clients. And it really does 2 major things for us. One, it creates these Twilio access tokens, which are what the mobile SDKs are going to use to be able to communicate and authenticate with the Twilio's backend. And we'll dig into that a little bit. And then 2 is provision new workplaces in Twilio. So when a customer first signs up for When I Work, we're going to go ahead and create that account channel for them, import any of their users into Programmable Chat. And that's necessary for when we send push notifications to be able to actually put the user's name who wrote the message right there into the push notification. And then also just to create that service for them so they have their own sandbox to play in. And then also a few other little back-end things. We have a participants endpoint that just returns essentially all of the users' names and avatars so that we can display them in the mobile app. And then some permissions endpoint just to make it easier for the mobile clients to be able to get at what permissions a particular user has. So let's now look at an example kind of workflow of a mobile login. So you got right here is your mobile app that's trying to log into our site. So first the user is going to enter their username and password, and they're going to send it along to, we have our standalone authentication service, and then that's going to authenticate them and then send back a JSON web token that has their identification information in it, their user ID, login ID, that sort of thing. Next, the mobile app's going to take that JWT and send it to our WorkChat API, and then that using Twilio's PHP SDK. That they're actually quite a few different languages, but we're a PHP shop primarily, so that's what we've been leveraging. We'll actually generate that Twilio access token and then return it to the client, and then finally, the Twilio SDK on the mobile device is going to take that access token and then essentially synchronize all of the channels that the user is subscribed to. And then that's going to enable all of those WebSocket events to start streaming to them as they happen. And also it'll register their push token, the device token with Twilio's push service, so they'll start receiving push notifications. And then finally, if it's a brand new account, we're going to go ahead and also create that service and channel and any of those users, and that happens in a back-end queue job. All right, let's dig into some code. So this is our code for provisioning new workplaces. So first thing you see is we're going to go ahead and create or find the account in our database, and then we're going to use, again, Twilio's PHP SDK, but also to note, this is all available all these actions we're doing are all available via the chat REST API. So you don't have to use the SDK. You could use any HTTP request library to do these yourself. But there's a little bit of convenience stuff that the SDK provides, so that's why we like it. So first thing we're doing is creating the service. Excuse me. And then we're setting some configuration settings on the service. Not, mostly boilerplate stuff, but we're configuring push notifications. You can kind of configure what types of push notifications you want to get sent. For us, we only want them sent for new messages, but you can also have them sent for members being added to channels, new channels being created, several different things. But for us, we only wanted messages. And that's what we went with. And then next, right below it, you can see we're actually, here we can use a little laser pointer. So we're essentially setting a message template. So when those push notifications are sent to the device, you have some customization over how you want those messages to appear. And that's just a little format that Twilio uses. There's great docs on how to specify that format. And then lastly, we're setting some webhook stuff. I'm not going to dig too deep into webhooks in this talk, or I'm really not going to talk about it at all. But know that they're there, and they can do some pretty cool stuff that lets your backend respond to all sorts of different changes that are happening in the app. And then lastly, for provisioning new workplaces, we do a little bit of customization with how permissions are set. So there's a lot of fine-grained control that Twilio provides over how you can configure permissions within your service. But it does provide out of the box, you can just use it how it works, but we just have a few minor tweaks. And so first, we have that announcements channel that I talked about, or account channel, workplace channel, we call it a lot of different things. But so for that channel, we actually set some custom permissions just for that channel, and that really is just to take away the ability to leave the channel, because we don't want we want to guarantee that managers and supervisors know that every single employee in the account is in that channel, so that when they need to post announcements, they know that everyone is going to get them. So, and then right below that, we're actually setting we're actually tweaking the default permissions in our service so that anyone who creates anyone in a channel besides the account announcements channel can add users to the channel and potentially rename the channel. Because by default, I think only the channel creator can do that. And then lastly, we're just saving this new service we created into our essentially mapping table so that on future requests to this to our WorkChat API, we know what service this user belongs to, and we can quickly serve that up. And now next, we're going to talk about creating access tokens. So, and this is really the endpoint that's going to get hit a lot. I think by default, access tokens have a time to live or expiration of 1 hour. You can set that up to a maximum of 24 hours. I think we have it set at 6 just to make sure that this endpoint isn't hit too frequently, but enough that if someone were to get deleted, they wouldn't have access to WorkChat for very much longer than after they were deleted. But so essentially in a middleware, we're already grabbing the user from the token, from the HTTP request, and then we're injecting. So this token is that we're injecting from Twilio's PHP SDK. We're just setting the identity on that to be our user's ID, and then the way the access tokens work is you have several different grants depending on what application you're trying to use, like sync or programmable SMS or those sorts of things. So I think the SDK still has the old name for Programmable Chat of IP messaging, but I assume at some point that'll get updated. But so you add that grant, and then you set what service this user belongs to, and then next we're setting the push credentials on that service so that we can actually send that user push notifications. And in a middleware, we're just checking to make sure that they're either what mobile device they have, either iOS or Android, because there are different credentials for that. And lastly, we just add the grant to the token, and then before we return it, what's happening right here is we have a job or command to sync the workplace channel. So what that's doing is, if it's a brand new account, we're actually going to go ahead and create that channel and then add all the users to the channel. But if they already exist, we just want to make sure that this user is in the channel, because maybe they're a new user to that account, so we want to just quickly add them to it. And then lastly, at the bottom, we're just returning the token to them. And so when this whole endpoint is happening, the first time a user logs in, and then essentially every time their token expires, our mobile clients know to just automatically re-hit this endpoint and grab a new token. So here's just a little bit of an action. Sorry about the blurry GIF. We didn't quite know what it would look like. But so on the left here, you have our web app, or our JavaScript front end. And that's just buried in our nav there. And then on the right, you have our Android app. And we're just doing a quick little fake chat. I think Chris is looking for someone to cover his shift. And I don't think he can do it. But then you see right there at the end here, they're saying, hey, I can't do it, but maybe we'll go through it again. 1 second here. All right. So he gets that push notification, brings up the chat, says, hey, sorry, can't do it. But then he's going to add somebody to that channel to see if Dan can cover instead. So he quickly goes, adds a new user, finds them, adds them to the chat, and then they can text them, and that person will start getting push notifications for it. So now, we've been using Twilio for about or Programmable Chat specifically, for about 6 months now. Learned a lot, and found just a couple of small things that either weren't documented really well, or just things we discovered that I think might be helpful to you guys. So we're just going to talk about some pro tips real fast. So probably the most important thing we discovered was, because WorkChat is part of a larger When I Work app, we send a lot of different push notifications to our users, be it shift schedule reminders, or PTO request approvals, or all sorts of, swap and drop requests. We didn't want users to get overburdened with a lot of chat messages from us, so we wanted to give them a lot of control over how they received those pushes. Because you can see, this is just a screenshot from our app. Among all of our different products, we give users a lot of control over how those pushes are sent, or whether or not those pushes are sent. And because all the other pushes we send, we're the ones sending them, so we have ultimate control over how they're sent. But because in Programmable Chat, Twilio is the one sending the messages, or sending those push notifications, you need some more control over that. And we actually we discovered that when you're granting those access tokens, you cannot, if you want, you can just not issue the push credentials, and then that device won't receive the push notifications. So essentially, when we're generating that access token, we're checking in our database to see what their settings are, and if they have it turned off, we just go ahead and not issue the push credential. The only minor thing to note with this is that every time they update their WorkChat preferences, notification preferences, which probably isn't super often, we just have to go ahead and regenerate that access token so that their current token reflects their notification settings. Another thing we discovered was because the way our provisioning process works, we're creating that workplace channel for them and then adding all the users in that channel to the workplace. And we're doing that through the REST API and not through the mobile client because that's happening as we generate the token. That endpoint to add members to a channel only takes one person at a time. And with some of our larger workplaces, this one-time provisioning could be a bit of a pain with having to do that. So we started doing that asynchronously, sending all of the add member requests all at the same time. And that was working for a while, but then once we scaled up and up to larger customers, we realized we were hitting a concurrency limit on Twilio's REST API. So we ended up turning that into a background queue job, and that just kind of fires intermittently, just doing some trial and error to find just the right batch size to do that. So another thing just to keep an eye out for is some race conditions. So originally when we were building this, we put a lot more of the channel creation logic into our API, and then essentially use that as a proxy for the Twilio's REST API. And we did that because we had some additional channel creation logic that we wanted to consolidate into one place on our back end so that we didn't have to duplicate that logic across all of our 3 different mobile front ends. So what we did there, so we went through that process and we found that there were a lot of different weird race conditions that were happening. Channels and members weren't getting synchronized at the right time. So we ended up just scrapping that and doing all of that on the front end or the mobile client of creating the channel and then adding the users in that order so that everything happened at the right time. And then all of our synchronization issues were solved. So I guess just takeaway, it helps to do more in the SDKs and less on the REST API. And then permissions are not available in the SDKs, but they are available through the REST API, and we just created an endpoint to kind of proxy that. And then lastly, as I said earlier, services can be used to keep kind of all the different customers in different sandboxes. So cool. Anyhow, Katie is going to just touch a little bit about what's next, but that's kind of a brief overview of how you might set up chat in your application.
Thanks, Sam. So we have obviously accomplished a lot in a short amount of time, thanks to Programmable Chat. We have a lot of functionality on our roadmap that we'll be using Programmable Chat to implement, and we're really excited moving into 2018 to use Programmable Chat to understand how we can bridge the gap in communication between potential employees and potential employers. So we'll be looking outside of workplaces, and what we talked today about was inside the workplaces. We thank you guys so much for joining us, and if you have any questions, we'll be available off stage for a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks guys.